You're standing at the mouth of a tunnel beneath an Amish farmhouse in Holmes County, Ohio. No compressor, no wiring, no thermostat. The air coming out of it is 55 degrees. It is the middle of August. It is 94 degrees above your head. And you are standing here, in the dark, watching your breath. This $300 system keeps any home at 55 degrees permanently, using nothing but the earth beneath your feet and a fan that draws less power than a single light bulb. The Amish have been building it for 200 years. The cooling industry discovered it in 1930, and in 1930, they made a decision you were never supposed to find out about. I drove 4 hours to see this myself, and what I found underneath those farms rewrote everything I thought I knew about keeping a home cool. Here's the number that changes everything. At 6 feet below the surface, the ground temperature locks in. It stops moving. Summer, winter, drought, heat wave, none of it matters. Oak Ridge National Laboratory, the Department of Energy's own primary research facility, measured this city by city across the continental United States. In Chicago, the ground sits at 54.6 degrees year-round. In Atlanta, 62.1. In Denver, 57.8. In Phoenix, 67.3. In Minneapolis, 51.9. And in Holmes County, Ohio, right where those Amish farms have sat for 2 centuries, the soil temperature holds between 54 and 56 degrees every single day of every single year. It does not fluctuate. It does not respond to heat waves. It does not care what July does to the surface. Think about that for a second. Your central air conditioner works by compressing chemical refrigerant, forcing it through a coil, blowing air across that coil, and dumping the extracted heat into the outdoor air. For every unit of electricity it consumes, it produces roughly 3.5 units of cooling. Engineers call that a coefficient of performance of 3.5, a buried earth tube, a simple pipe that lets air travel through cool ground, was measured across 47 independent installations worldwide by researchers at ETH Zurich, one of the most respected engineering institutions on the planet. Their coefficient of performance, 28.7. Not 28. Not about 28, 28.7. That gap minus 3.5 versus 28.7 represents billions of dollars in equipment, refrigerant, electricity, and service contracts every single year. And that is exactly why you have never heard of this. And yes, this works even if your house was built 50 years ago. Even if you rent and can't touch the foundation. Even if you've never built anything in your life. The system I'm going to show you requires a yard, even a side yard, even a strip of land the width of a car along a fence line. The physics behind it is almost too simple. Soil is dense between 100 and 125 pounds per cubic foot. Moving that mass, even a single degree, requires enormous energy, between 20 and 30 BTUs per cubic foot. When summer heat bakes the surface, it begins sinking into the earth, but it moves slowly, 6 to 8 weeks to penetrate just 6 feet deep. By the time the heat arrives, the season has already shifted. The earth can't absorb it fast enough to warm up. It stays cool. It is the largest passive thermal battery on this planet, and it is sitting under your house right now, doing absolutely nothing, because no one told you it was there. The Amish didn't learn this from a textbook. They paid attention to what the earth was already doing and built around it. Every farm in Holmes County has a root cellar dug 10 feet deep. No insulation, no mechanical cooling. The soil holds it between 32 and 40 degrees year-round. That is not tradition. That is applied physics refined across 2 centuries of daily use. Then there are the spring houses, small structures built directly over natural springs, where groundwater flows at a constant 54 to 56 degrees. The water moves beneath the floor. The building holds between 50 and 58 degrees all summer. I stood inside one on a day when it was 91 degrees outside. I could see my breath. But the system that matters most for your home is what the Amish call the breath of the floor. Clay pipes buried beneath the foundations of their farmhouses. Air enters from outside, travels underground through those pipes, rises through the floorboards, cooled by the earth itself. The USDA documented this in a published manual in 1903, specifically noting clay pipe installations in Holmes County, Ohio. That document is 122 years old. The system it describes is still operating under Amish homes today. Here's where it gets interesting. The Amish who settled Ohio and Pennsylvania came from Germany and Switzerland. Those same 2 countries now lead the world in modern earth tube engineering. The Passive House Institute in Darmstadt has tracked 847 monitored residential earth tube installations across Germany since 2005. Austria requires thermal labyrinth analysis for any new building over 1,000 square meters. ETH Zurich completed a 15-year longitudinal study showing 0 Degradation in earth tube performance across the entire monitoring period. 0. The knowledge the Amish carried from Europe 200 years ago is the same knowledge Europe rediscovered with modern instruments and peer-reviewed methodology. The circle closed. But America never got the memo, because someone made sure it didn't. In 1902, Willis Carrier invented mechanical air conditioning inside a printing plant in Brooklyn, New York. His original problem was not heat. It was humidity, destroying paper stock. The machine was never designed for human comfort. But by the 1920s, Carrier Corporation had launched a campaign called Weathermaker, repositioning mechanical air conditioning as the defining symbol of American progress. Their marketing materials, and I have read them, explicitly labeled passive cooling techniques as primitive and unsanitary. Then, in 1930, a Carrier Engineering Corporation technical manual included one sentence that effectively buried 5,000 years of proven engineering. It read, "Earth contact cooling is suitable only for cellars and food storage." One sentence, one corporate manual, and an entire field of knowledge vanished from American construction. It wasn't an accident. In 1927, the first model mechanical codes were drafted with direct participation from HVAC industry representatives. Passive alternatives were not banned. They simply did not exist anywhere in the document. The people writing the rules were the same people selling compressors. After World War II, the post-war construction boom standardized mechanical cooling as the only acceptable approach. Passive cooling disappeared from architecture schools. By 1980, fewer than 3% of American architecture programs taught any passive cooling strategy at all. An entire generation of architects, engineers, contractors, and inspectors was trained in a world where earth tubes did not exist. Not because they failed, because they weren't profitable. The Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute spent $47.3 million on political activities in 2022 alone. The residential cooling market in the United States is worth $29 billion per year. The average lifetime value of a single residential HVAC customer exceeds $15,000. Every earth tube installed is a compressor that never gets sold, a refrigerant charge that never gets refilled, a service contract that never gets signed. In 2019, ASHRAE Technical Committee 6-8, the committee specifically responsible for evaluating exactly these kinds of systems, rejected a proposal to create a performance pathway for earth tubes. Their stated reason: insufficient domestic performance data. They said this while holding 3 decades of European documentation covering 847 monitored installations. When researchers examined the committee's membership, 67% were direct representatives of HVAC manufacturers. The foxes rode the rules for the hen house, and the hens never knew. In 2021, the Building Officials Association of Florida formally opposed a code amendment that would have recognized passive cooling in the state building code. Their stated concern was inspection complexity. But every earth tube approved in Florida is a central air system that never gets installed. In a state where cooling bills run $400 a month for 6 months of the year, the International Residential Code, Section M1601, requires all duct systems to be constructed of materials with a maximum flame spread index of 200. There is no provision for earth contact air handling. The code assumes ducts exist inside buildings. A system that buries pipe in the ground does not fit the template. Therefore, it cannot be approved. Not because it fails, because the form has no box for it. And that's why you've never heard of this. But the buildings that use it, they exist. The Cambridge Public Library in Massachusetts runs 42 earth tubes beneath its foundation. The result: 51 to 56% less total energy use compared to a code standard building. The Earth Rangers Center in Toronto operates 9 concrete tubes, each 65 feet long, buried 10 feet deep. In summer, it cools incoming air by 18 degrees. In winter, it warms incoming air by 36. It holds lead platinum certification. The Allgemeines Krankenhaus Hospital in Vienna has been cooling critical care units with earth tubes since 1994. 31 years of continuous operation. Maintenance required every 5 to 7 years. Operating cost a fraction of conventional mechanical cooling. These aren't experiments. They're proven infrastructure. But your building inspector has never heard of them, because his licensing exam never mentioned them. Stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You do not need to tear up your foundation. You do not need a new house. You need land, even a side yard, even a fence line. Here is exactly what this system looks like for an existing home. You dig a trench, 6 feet deep along whatever stretch of ground you have available. Backyard, property line, side yard, it does not matter. Into that trench, you lay smooth wall HDPE or PVC pipe, 6 to 8 inches. in diameter. In a continuous run between 100 and 200 feet, smooth wall is not optional. Corrugated pipe traps condensation and becomes a mold problem within one season. You lay the pipe on a bed of clean sand for maximum thermal contact with the surrounding soil. You slope the entire run at a 2% grade toward a single drain point so any moisture that condenses inside flows out and never pools. One end of the pipe connects to an above-ground intake fitted with a fine mesh screen to keep debris and animals out. The other end connects through your basement wall or crawl space, fitted with an MV13 filter and an inline fan drawing between 50 and 80 watts. What comes out the other end is air that has traveled up to 200 feet through earth locked at 55 degrees. On a 95-degree day, that air exits your intake between 65 and 72 degrees. No compressor, no refrigerant, no chemical process. Just the temperature of the ground doing exactly what it has always done. And that air is not just cooler, it is drier. The condensation on the pipe walls captures airborne moisture and particles. Humidity drops from 80% to under 49%. The air entering your home is cooler and cleaner than what any window unit produces. The materials cost roughly $300. The fan runs on what a single light bulb uses, and the pipe lasts between 50 and 100 years. Your central air unit lasts 15 to 25 years before it ends up in a landfill. Now here's the part that made me drive 6 hours to see it myself. A man in rural Kentucky. Standard 1,400 square foot house built in the late 1960s. Nothing unusual about the construction. His summer cooling bill ran $218 a month. His winter heating bill ran close to the same. 3 years ago he built a closed-loop glycol system, the same antifreeze, in your car radiator, circulating through buried pipe, under a detached workshop, 14 feet from his back door. The glycol loop runs through a simple heat exchanger connected to a $90 fan coil unit he bought online. No ductwork changes. No permits because it qualifies as a standard plumbing loop under existing code, not an HVAC installation. In summer, the system pulls heat out of his house and deposits it into 55-degree earth. In winter, it pulls 55-degree warmth from that same earth and pushes it inside. One loop, 2 functions, 12 months of use. His heating and cooling bill since installation, $0. He called it the last bill I ever paid. The total material cost was $385. He dug the trench over 3 weekends. The circulator pump draws 42 watts. His existing furnace and air conditioner are still connected, still in place. He simply never turns them on. If the earth loop ever needed service, he could switch back in under 5 minutes. There is no risk. There is no commitment. There is just a man who stopped paying $218 a month because he understood what the soil beneath his workshop was already doing for free. That knowledge is not new. The Persians built wind catchers and underground cooling channels 2,400 years ago to store ice through 120-degree desert summers in the Yaz region of what is now Iran. The Romans engineered hypocaust channels beneath their villas, not just for heat in winter, but for drawing cool air along buried stone corridors in summer. The Koreans developed the ondol system, running air passages beneath living floors, more than 3,000 years ago across the Korean peninsula. Native Americans in the American Southwest built semi-subterranean structures for 8,000 years, not as a stylistic choice, but because the earth maintained a stable temperature there above ground air never could. Every civilization that faced extreme climate independently, across thousands of years and thousands of miles, arrived at the same answer. The earth stores temperature. The pipe is just the path. The Amish carried this exact knowledge from Germany and Switzerland to Pennsylvania and Ohio 200 years ago. They never stopped using it, because it never stopped working. The circle closed, but America never got the memo, because someone made sure it didn't. Drop your state in the comments. Tell me what you pay for cooling in summer. Tell me if you have any land around your house, even a front yard, even a fence line, even a strip the width of a car. If your grandfather ever had a root cellar or a spring house that kept food cold without electricity, I want to hear about that. Because that knowledge and this system are the same physics. They just gave it a different name, so you'd think it was complicated. It's not complicated. The earth beneath your house sits at 55 degrees. It has always sat at 55 degrees. And it will sit at 55 degrees long after every air conditioner ever manufactured has corroded into scrap. Hit subscribe, because next week, I'm going to show you the Amish water system that produces clean drinking water with no pump, no filter, and no electricity. Using a gravity-fed method the EPA attempted to classify as non-compliant in 2014. They failed. And the reason they failed is the story you need to hear. The Amish never forgot. You were just never given it. Now you have it.